My kids abandoned me in sickness, calling me needy. I cut them off financially and now they're fuming. I cut them off financially, and now they're fuming. I am a 67 female, lonely, and sad grandma. You know, there's a kind of loneliness that sneaks up on you. It's not the kind you feel when you lose a spouse or sit in an empty house on a rainy day. It's the kind that comes when you realize the people you gave everything to, your love and time and energy, they turn their back on you. Today is one of those days when I miss my husband, my partner, the most. I lost him 6 years ago and since then it has been miserable. No, not financially, thank goodness. I'm sound in that way. Husband and I were the hard-working duo in our good years. We didn't live lavishly and always saved up for the rainy day. Between long hours, penny pinching, and slogging our butts for our whole life, we managed to save up a decent nest egg. The fruits that I'm reaping today came from decades of hustle. The cause of my pain is my children, Kat, 41 female, and Sam, 38 male. We gave them a good life and raised them the best we could. Yet, I'm sitting here staring at the wall of the empty house. I can't help but wonder where we went wrong in raising them. Our kids were our source of happiness and pride. Kat was always the overachiever. She wanted to be a doctor, but life had other plans. She got pregnant young and married her high school sweetheart. We wanted her to go back to school after the first baby, but she soon conceived the second one and settled for a stay-at-home mom. I personally don't advocate this, but then it's their choice. However, I can already see the repercussions of that. They always have a money problem, and as a loving mom and grandma, I have to pitch in often willingly and sometimes with a sigh. Sam, on the other hand, was more of a free spirit. He willingly dropped out of college because he was killing in his part-time sales job. My husband and I hoped he would make a career in sales, but soon he quit his stable and high-paying job and since then has been chasing his next big idea, a coffee shop here, a landscaping business there, and most recently, a food truck. The brunt of the failed businesses mostly fell on us. The piled-up rent and mortgages, sometimes we also had to cover the losses he incurred. We didn't mind helping them when they needed it. That's what parents do, right? But the thing about help is it's supposed to go both ways. Over the years, I lost track of how many times I swooped in for both. Yet, when I needed them, I get none. 1.5 months back, I slipped on the bathroom floor and fractured my hip bone. I had to undergo a minor surgery to get it fixed. I was put on bed rest for 2 weeks. Being confined to the bed was depressing. I have always led an active lifestyle. My husband and I always used to go for runs and treks. Even after he passed away, I used to go for my runs like a ritual. More than the physical pain of the broken bones, I was emotionally exhausted. I asked Kat if they could temporarily move in with me. My house has enough room for them. The kids loved to be here and I would get their company. My intention was not to make her my nurse. I just wanted to have them around and it was a matter of a few weeks. She reasoned that the school and her husband's workplace would be far from here. She lives 15 minutes away, so it was just a few miles extra drive. I foolishly insisted and she said she would discuss it with her husband and get back. She never did. Back then, I didn't realize that she was pushing back on helping me. I thought moving here would be a genuine trouble for them. I let it pass. After a couple of days, I needed help to take a shower. I hesitantly sent a voicemail asking for help. She didn't respond, but she showed up an hour later and helped me with the shower with an agitated face. While leaving, she steadily said, "Mom, why don't you hire a nurse?" I didn't understand her sudden remark, just stared at her. She continued, "No. I mean, it will be for a while before you can do things on your own. You'll need help more often." I said, "Yes, I would, but don't worry, I won't bother you." She didn't hear the last part, or maybe ignored it. I still gave her the benefit of the doubt, thinking she must be overwhelmed with her responsibilities and I was adding to it. This is the first time I was asking my kids for any help or favor whatsoever. I was unable to comprehend that she would react in this way. I was still in my recovery phase when I had to see a dentist to fix my aching tooth. I called Kat to check her availability. Still wasn't confident to drive or go by myself. She got annoyed and replied, "Do I really need to go? Can't you manage alone?" I said if I could, I wouldn't have bothered her. I've been doing everything all by myself after my husband's death. Didn't bother them for anything. Now I was in need and that's why I called her. She sensed that I was offended. She immediately changed her tone and replied, "Mom, don't get me wrong. I have to take the kids to practice." I said sure and hung up. I thought maybe she'd feel guilty and call back. She didn't. I somehow managed to visit the dentist, who was sure to send a nurse for assistance the next time I visited. After that, Kat didn't even check on me. I hate to count the favors on my children, but the way she treated me makes me remember the times I have bailed her out. The first time she called me for help was when they were running 2 months behind on their daughter's playschool fees. She called me in tears with a shaky voice and said, "Mom, I hate to ask, but we're in a bind. I was disheartened to find her in such a bad shape financially. I quickly jumped in. Of course, I wired the money immediately. And then there were the little things. Birthday parties I funded, summer camps for the grandkids, surprise checks when their rent was due. I never said no. And my son? What do I even say about him? If anything, he's worse. When I was bedridden after the surgery, I asked him if he could run some errands for me. He replied, "Sure." I waited for a day before sending him a reminder, to which he replied, "On it." A day passed again, but no trace. He didn't even answer the call. Lastly, I had to request my neighborhood friend to cover for me. I was furious because if he didn't intend to help, he could have just said it to my face instead of giving false hope. He was least bothered about how his mom would be doing, but when his coffee shop fell apart before he even opened, he came to me, hat in hand, asking for help covering the debt. His father refused to pitch in, saying he needs to bear the consequences of his actions, but he convinced me, saying, "It's just a rough patch, Mom. I'll return it once I'm back on my feet." That day never came and I never saw that money again. The worst part is he didn't even bother to check if I got the groceries. On top of all these, he randomly showed up one evening asking, "What's for dinner?" I asked if you even remember that I requested you to run errands for me. He pretended to completely missed out on that. He gave the excuse that he was extremely busy with his business and hence tended to miss out on minor things. Minor things? Sure. He then apologized and said he would do anything to make it up to me this time. So yesterday, I asked him if he could drive me to the physio. First, he didn't answer my call. I dropped a voice note, to which he answered today, 24 hours later, saying, "Mom, I'm slammed right now. Gas is so expensive and it's hard to justify this drive." Hard to justify the drive? I'd spend 1,000 helping him and he couldn't even spare an afternoon. I replied this and he snapped, "Kat was right. You have become needy." I was shocked at his reply. Is that what my children think of me? Needy? It's the last thing I would be. After doing everything for your children, this is what you get in return. Labeled as needy? I have been feeling abandoned and confused. On some days, I feel I'm just hallucinating and think I'm expecting too much from them. They have their own crap to deal with, but it doesn't mean they can make me feel like trash. I deserve much more respect and love. Let me see if I got this straight. You've bankrolled their lives, bailed them out more times than you can count, and in return, they've labeled you needy for asking for a ride to the physio. You absolutely deserve better. And if they're not willing to show up for you, maybe it's time to stop funding their rough patches. Update 1. Thanks to the community, I was introduced to a group of people my age group who more or less were suffering from the same feelings of neglect. Someone asked me if this was the first time my children were behaving this way. Well, yes, this is the first time I saw this version of my children. Prior to this incident, they used to drop by at least once a month. Kat was more regular than Sam. I sometimes used to drive her kids to their practice or school. I felt blessed to be a part of their life. Though this is the first time they acted this way, I won't give them the benefit of the doubt. Nothing has changed them. They have always been like this. Just that my surgery exposed the reality. Earlier, I didn't seek help from them. Hence, they never got the chance to refuse me. Anyways, I have recovered and now I'm leading a life I wanted. Though my recovery was slow because of aging bones, I bounced back on my feet and started leading my normal life without bothering my children. I went back to my routine jog and posted it on Facebook. After which, Kat texted, "Good job, to see you're doing better." Everything gradually went back to normal. Kat started coming around more often as she used to earlier. Sam also started showing up every now and then, asking me if he could join me for dinner. It almost started feeling like I had a bad dream or misunderstood my children. I didn't bring up the past or how they made me feel. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction knowing they hurt me. I'm not delusional. I understand that my children want a fit and wealthy mother so they can support them in every way. They're not ready to return the favors when their mom needs them. Meanwhile, Kat called me one evening saying the kids want to go to Disneyland, but they don't have the budget for the trip. I heard, sympathized with her and said, "Poor kid." The earlier me would have immediately wired the money. But now I learned my lesson. She didn't poke me again. Next, Sam texted me one day requesting an immediate $10,000 to make a vendor payment. I ignored his text and also his several calls. Surprisingly, on my birthday, both of them turned up with flowers, cakes, and candles. After dinner, when we were casually chatting, Sam brought up the topic that I ignored his borrowing request. Kat also jumped in saying there's something wrong because I didn't even care to pitch in for my grandkids' Disney trip. I just smiled and didn't even try to hide my apprehension. I said, "I'm getting old and my health is failing. God forbid if it further slips, I would have to hire a caregiver. Hence, I'm saving every penny I can." I sarcastically let out that I don't want to be a burden on them. They understood it and Kat casually dropped this statement, trying to put it as a joke. "Mom's being vindictive. Are you trying to get back at us for something?" Without losing my composure, I shot back. What made you think so? Did you do me any wrong? An awkward silence crept in. Yeah. It was a trick question and they dodged it. I took a sip and said, I don't want to be needy, you know. They exchanged glances but none of them spoke a word. They didn't even have the courtesy to apologize. They stopped visiting after that. Good for me. I'm leading my life the way I want. I don't owe anyone anything, be it my children or whoever. Sad part is that my physical health was far away from normal. I started gaining weight and got arthritis, yet I'm trying to have an active life. It's difficult, but I'm determined to have my life back on track. OP, you gave your children so much of yourself. And when you needed them, they showed you where you truly stood in their priorities. It's painful, but it's also clarifying. You're not only vindictive, you're being wise. You're setting boundaries and protecting yourself, and that's something to be proud of. They don't deserve anything more from you. Update 2. I have cut off my children financially for my own good. Like I wrote on my first post how I have been bailing out my children all their life and when I needed their support, they turned their backs on me. So this time, Sam's food truck went belly up. He came over and sobbed about it. Well, I could only sympathize. I didn't ask him what's next. I realized I should stay away from their matters if I wanted to safeguard my money. He said he'll figure out something or maybe this time start something smaller and scale it up. I wanted to suggest he take up a job or something, but I forced shut my mouth and said, very well. Good luck, and push off to my room to sleep. A month later, he called me asking if he could borrow some $30,000. I freaked out. This was the first time I reacted this way. I snapped at him. Do you have no shame in endlessly borrowing money from your old mother? He replied, what's wrong with you? I'll return it. I said, sorry, I'm not falling for this anymore. He fought back. Why not? You have the money lying unused. Why can't you lend it to me? First time in a while, I screamed at him. How do you even get the courage to ask? Remember how you refused to step up when I asked for help? He interrupted in between and apologized, saying he didn't mean to hurt me and that I should bail him out one last time. I replied, you abandoned me when I needed the support and now you expected to bail you out? No way. He pleaded with me, promising never to repeat his callous attitude, but I hung up on him. A few weeks later, he called me again saying he was in grave trouble. His landlord had locked him out as he was running behind on 2 months' rent. He wanted me to lend money so that he could get the access back. I said, you're an adult and should know how to deal with it. He begged me to help him as he had no other means to get out of this mess. I said, you're a healthy young man with 4 limbs and a sharp brain. You should be able to figure it out. When I could do it, double your age at half your strength, you should too. He relentlessly apologized and requested I help him out this time, but I stood firm on my ground. 2 days later, he texted that he was somehow able to get his stuff back from the landlord but now needs a place to crash. He requested that I let him in for some time. I replied, wouldn't it be weird for a grown-up man to live with his mother? That's when he had told me when I was bedridden and asked him to stay with me for a while. He got offended and sent me a long note that I was taking it too far and holding grudges against my children. I don't know what superpower God has given the children that they can get away with anything they say and do, but parents cannot. When I needed them, I was needy. And now when they need me, I reciprocate their gesture. I'm vindictive and evil and whatnot. Wow, I don't give a crap of what he thinks of me. I feel pretty good for standing up for myself. Update 3. This sub seems to be my escape den. Whenever life shot at me, I come here to share my feelings with my homies. Thanks to this community, I have a sense of belonging. A lot of you commented in my last post saying my daughter was better. Let me tell you, both of them are jerks. Very sad and pathetic feeling for a mother to know that both her children turned out to be selfish and evil. That's what I have been mourning about since yesterday. I wish I didn't have to live this long to witness these days. I envy my husband for leaving the world with happy memories of the family and the children. Kat came to me and started whining about her terrible life. Mind you, she was visiting me after many months despite living 15 minutes away. She was here to complain about their crumbling finances. Her husband has been laid off and they are running behind on the bills. I said, I'm sorry to hear about it, but what can I do? I'm a retired old woman living off my retirement money. She sat there in silence and after a few minutes with teary eyes, I asked, do you want me to beg in front of you? Is this what you want? I was shocked at her behavior. She continued, I came here with the hope that my mother would have my back and look at my mother, sitting here in her ego, looking down upon her children. I said, listen. I'm not looking down on anyone. I'm sorry you're in trouble, but what can I do about it? I have my own bills to pay. I have no source of income. The retirement money is all I have. If I give that away, how am I going to survive for the rest of the years? She snapped. Don't you trust your children will take care of you in case such a situation happens? I replied, I hate to say this but since you brought this up, no. I don't trust my children. Tough situation happened and hope you even remember how you treated me when I asked for help. And that too, I needed your time and presence, but you abandoned me. How can I rely on my children for financial help when they wouldn't give me their time? She stood up and stabbed to me. You know what? You're a vindictive person. You let your son sleep in the street. You're letting your daughter struggle financially. You're okay letting your grandkids suffer. All for revenge. You want to get back at us for not nursing you? For God's sake, if we had the time, we would have done it, but we had our lives to deal with. I have 2 toddlers. He had a business. How could you expect us to leave everything and coddle you? I said, you know what? You should leave. This talk is not leading anywhere. You both got the taste of your own medicine and I know it's better. She stormed out of the house saying I was a terrible mom who was hurting my children and grandkids to satisfy my ego. Can you believe this? I cried for an hour and then told myself that I'm not a terrible mother. I did everything to give them a good life, provided for them, gave them an education, and treated them well. It's on them that they left their education midway and chose a different life for themselves. I'm not responsible for their terrible life choices, am I? Fighting and saying evil things to me was not enough that she went and complained about me to my sister. She called up my sister who lives 2 states away saying I refused to help her despite the beggings and pleadings. She said I insulted and mocked her husband that he couldn't provide for his family. I was shocked at her lies. I didn't say a word about her husband. If I had to mock anyone, I would mock her for not supporting her husband financially. Kat even told my sister that I didn't care about my grandkids who had to drop off from their basketball classes due to a money crunch. I narrated all the past incidents to my sister and she was fuming. She said it was kind of me to still be civil to them and if she was in the place, she would have disowned them at the very first instance. Now I don't know whether I should be happy or sad about it. All I know is that I did my best for the children and now it's on them whether they acknowledge it or not. I'm not holding my breath for them to realize my worth. I have my own life, whatever is left, and I cannot let them ruin it. Well, they've had ample chances to step up, but they chose not to. They're upset because they're finally seeing the consequences of their actions. Not because you're in the wrong. You've done more than enough for them. You're not a terrible mother by any means, OP. You're simply a mother who has given enough. And now it's time to take care of yourself. What would you do in this situation? Thank you for joining us today in the R Lounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time. And please put your chair back where you found it.